Langston Hughes has many well-known poems. Probably one of his best-known poems would be "The Negro Speaks of Rivers." It's one of his better known, and most people associate this poem with one of his best poems. As I said earlier in the other video, a big part of modernism is symbolism and imagery, and the first part in this video is Langston compares the blood of the Negroes to the water in the rivers and how they're both ancient and rich with history. Also, more imagery in this poem. Langston describes the rivers and how they affect, how they relate to African American history. If you want to understand the imagery in this poem a little bit better, you should probably know what the rivers are in this poem and where they came from and what they have to do with Langston Hughes. The first one is the Euphrates. That is the river that went through the Garden of Eden, which is where Adam and Eve lived at the very beginning of the Bible in Genesis. The next river is the Congo, which it goes through the heart of Africa, where all the African Americans originated from. The next one is the Nile, which it comes from Egypt, where that stands for the empire Egypt had when they were a world power in that time. And last one, of course, is Mississippi, which flows through America and has its rich history with the slaves and Abraham Lincoln. If you remember in the last video I said modernism, a big part of modernism is just being different. That means being different from what most people are writing in the time, or different from what people were writing before that time. And Langston does this in his poem. He writes it with more of a gospel preacher style and a gospel preacher rhythm, as opposed to the normal poem rhythm, which would be more of like a blues. You can see this in the beginning of the lines. He says stuff like "I build," "I bathe," and stuff like that, and the repetition also contributes to that. In the poem, Langston says, "My soul has grown deep like the rivers," and he goes on to describe the rivers and the important ones in African history, African American history. And this is similar to everybody's favorite author, Walt Whitman, who was a huge precursor to modernism, and he was a radical writer of his time that brought forward modernism. And Walt Whitman was a huge influence on Langston Hughes. And Walt Whitman's one of his famous poems, "The Song of Myself," that's kind of what Langston is doing here. He's identifying himself and what he thinks African traditions are and American traditions are for him and the now African Americans in America. I got my sources from friends. Facts on File again, if you guys want to check that out.
The poem "Will V-Day Be Me Day Too" was set up to be a letter to Americans during World War II. In the poem, the soldier tells the readers everything he has done in war. He experiences the same victories and tragedies of his white counterparts, yet when they return home, the black soldier will still be governed by the racist laws in a country he has pledged to fight for. We can see the author's feelings in the lines, "Here in my native land, will the Jim Crow laws still stand?" Hughes shows that V-Day, or Victory Day, will never come for the African American soldiers. But he also encourages his brothers, both black and white, to stand up like a man at home and take your stand for democracy. Hughes wrote this poem in free verse, so the readers can really sense his emotions in every line. For example, we can strongly feel his anger with America and those who support and enforce racist laws.